Good morning, everyone. We are in the new parak. Ayin Vav and Beis. Hatoda haisaba chamesh shan Yerushalmios shehin sheish midbarios shtei efos ha'efa shloshayin esrim isaron asar lachametz v'asar lamatzah. What is going on here? So the Toda, we know, and as we'll establish today, the bottom, the new parak, the Toda is 4 different types of breads, 3 matzah breads and 1 chametz bread, and 10 loaves of each. So that's a total of 40. Okay, so at least you're not so bad at math. So 40. So there were 40. Now these loaves would come from 5 sa'in Yerushalmios. Now at the times of the Torah was given, there was something called midbarios. They got the Torah in the midbar. There were biblical measurements. And then there were Yerushalmios. Those are not the people that live, the Yerushalmis. These are the Yerushalmios measurements. When they settled in Eretz Yisrael, they increased the measurements. And this is the most important part of today, so listen, please. They increased the measurements by 20%, which means the following. Until today, this in the Midbarios, when we said this is a sa, give me a sa, please. This is a sa. This is how much you're going to get for a sa. Increasing the measurements means that one sa, what's the easiest way to explain this? The Canadian dollar versus the American dollar. They were 1 to 1. The Canadian dollar equaled an American dollar. Today, the American dollar is worth more than the Canadian dollar. Therefore, a Canadian dollar is 3/4 of a Canadian dollar. For our purposes, let's say, of an American dollar. For our purposes, the Canadian dollar is now 5/6 of an American dollar. So what happened? Well, we know what happened, but what really happened? What happened was that they raised the amount of a sa. So what does that mean? That means this was this same thing. This same, let's talk about container. This container was 5 sa in Yerushalmios and 6 sa in Midbarios. If this was 6 sa in Midbarios and now it's only 5 sa, then what happened? Each sa became bigger. Each sa increased by 20%, which is really 1/6. I just want to establish this. We'll just do it for 2 minutes. It's going to take a long time to do the daf today, but 20% raise in something equals a 6th raise after the fact. That means if I have 5, 20% of 5 is 1. So if I add 20% of 5, if I have a 20% raise of 5, I end up, by looking at the final number, if I look at the final number 6, I had a 1/6 increase. So again, a 20% increase of the original amount leaves me, when I look at the final amount, as 1/6. So that's what the Gemara is going to be looking at. The final amount, we increased it by 1/6. But really, in order to get 1/6 of the final amount, right, in order to get 6 from 5, you have to add 20% to 5 to end up with 6. But when you look at 6, you say, well, I raised it by 1/6. But you really raised by 20%, by 1/5, in order to get. So the point is that they had 5. So this was called a sa. This is still a sa. It's going to always be called a sa, not a gemara. It's going to be called a sa. This sa, this was 6 sa in the midbar. In the midbar, if you looked at this, and somebody said, how many sa are in there? They would say 6. When they came to the temple and you looked at this and somebody asked, how much was this? This is 5 sa. Now what's the problem? As we're going to get to in the Gemara, if somebody charges $1 a sa, so now what happens? If you're buying this, how much are you paying? Well, I'm paying you $6 as the buyer. Now what happens? If this becomes 5 sa, so there's really 6 sa in here. So now you're going to be paying $6. If I come to you and I say, how much is this? So if I come to you yesterday, you're going to say $6. If I come to you today, you're going to say $6. It's the same amount of stuff. The problem is that yesterday, if you go based on 5 sa in here, then, or yesterday, if you go based on 6 sa in here, you're paying $1 a sa. Today, if you want to do it based on sa, you're getting the same amount, but if you're doing it based on sa, you're paying $1.20 a sa. So it's the same amount of stuff. That's what I said, the Canadian exchange. That's what I said, a Canadian versus American. But the point is, as we'll see, it's going to be confusing for a buyer. But let's just say for now, the original measurements was that this was 6 sa midbarios, and then it changed to 5 sa. If this changed to 5 sa, that means each sa became stronger, became bigger. Now each sa is 1.2 of what the original sa was, i.e., it's a 6 increase, a 20% increase, which is 1/6. That's the point. So now the midbarios, we're going to deal with the Yerushalmios, which is what today is, right? We have to know what lamais is. So hatoda haisaba chameshan Yerushalmios, a toda would come from 5 sa Yerushalmios, which was 6 sa midbarios. Now we're still going to be within the midbarios calculation because the psukim are talking about midbarios calculations. The psukim were given in the midbarios, so then we're going to have to figure it out. Today we'll have to figure out the modern day equivalent. But we're going to deal with the back in the day. We got to establish first, and then we can figure out how much we increase. Then we'll just increase whatever we have, and we'll say, well, it's the same amount. We'll say, well, now you got to do X amount of sahs. Fine. So let's just work with the 6 sah for now, which was the midbarios. So the todas would come from 6 sah midbarios, which were what? Just as an aside, afterwards, after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, they increased it by another 20%, which means that it got stronger again. Each sah, now this became, let's just say, 1/5. This became not 4 sah, it became whatever, 4 point something sah. And again, that was called the tziporios, but we're not dealing with that. So let's deal with the midbarios for now. So it was 6 sah. In order to have the todas, the 40 loaves, you needed 6 sah, which was shtei efa midbarios. An efa is shalosh sign, which makes sense. That's why it's 6 sign. Esrim isaron, which comes out to 20 isarons of flour. Asar l'chametz v'asar l'matzah. We had this already. So bottom line is that at the times, if we're using the temple measurements, if we're using the chumash measurements, you end up with 6 sah of flour, which is 20 isaron of flour. We said 20 isaron of flour goes 10 isaron of flour. Half the flour goes to the 10 loaves of chametz. So there are 4 types of bread, 10 loaves of each. So half of it goes to the 10 loaves of chametz, and half of it goes to the 30 loaves of matzah. 3 different types, 10 each. So what does that mean in English? If you're good, again, you have to be good at math. What does it mean in English? That means that each loaf of the chametz stuff, right? The Toda had 10 loaves that were chametz and 30 loaves that were not. That means that each loaf of chametz had how many? If you had 10 isarons for 10 loaves, each loaf had 1 isaron. And if you had 10 isaron for 30 loaves, each loaf of the matzah had 1/3 of an isaron, which means that each loaf of chametz had 3 times as much flour in it as each loaf of matzah. English? Make sense? Yeah. Fine. Says the Gemara, that's what it means. Asara l'chametz v'asara l'matzah. There were 10 of the 20 isaron that went for the chametz, which was only 10 loaves, and the other 10 isaron of flour went for the 30 loaves of matzah. Asar l'chametz isaron l'chala. If you have 10 for the chametz, that's 1 isaron per loaf. The asar l'matzah, l'chala here means per loaf, and asar l'matzah u'v'matzah shalosh minin. As we said, chalos, rikikin u'revucha. Again, just to review, the chalos means these are all of the non-chametz loaves. So the chalos are just regular, what we would call, I would say, lafa, the non-chametz lafa. Rikikin would be like the equivalent of our day matzah. And revucha would seemingly be like the loaves as well, would be like the lafas, but it would have been that the flour was scalded before it was baked. So nimsu shlosha esronim u'shlish l'chomin v'min. So you have 10 isaron split up between the 3 different types. It's 3 and a third isaron for each type, which means shlosh chalos l'isaron, which means that each challah, each loaf will have 1/3 of an isaron. B'mida Yerushalmis. Now Yerushalmis, again, we said that b'mida Yerushalmios, as we just said, you go 5 sah. But then he's telling you, forget about 5 sah versus 6 sah. In the Yerushalmios, they didn't even use sahs. They use what's called a kav. Therefore what? They use shloshim kav. 30 kav. How much was a kav? 30 kavs equals 5 Yerushalmi sah, which is the same as 6 midbarios sah, which is the same as 20 midbarios isarons. So we don't want to just figure out in modern day. Again, we know now in the biblical terms, you have 20 isaron. Each loaf, lamaisa, in biblical terms, each loaf gets 1/3 of an isaron of flour for the 30.
Biblical meaning
biblical times, at the times of the biblical. Yerushalmi is already later. That's at the times of... talking about biblical times based on when the Torah is talking about. When the Torah says isaron, so the Torah says isaron, it needs to have. So again, each, in the biblical times...
Biblical is midbar.
Midbar. So each loaf of matzah had 1/3 of an isaron for a total of 10 for the 30, and then each of the matzah ones had 1 isaron for a total of 10, which was again 20 isaron total. That was the equivalent of, if you go to modern day Yerushalmi, modern day is 30 kav. So how do you split up the 30 kav? Half and half. 15 l'chametz v'chamisha l'matzah. What does that mean? 15 l'chametz kav u'mechza l'chala. Right. That end up having 15 kavs for what? For 10 matzah loaves, which is 1.5 kav per what? For the chametz, 1.5 kav measurement, which is the same again, which is the same as 1 isaron, 1.5 kav per chametz chala. Mishar l'matzah u'v'matzah shosh minim chalos v'kikin u'revucha nimsu chameshes kavin l'chomin v'min u'shtei chalos kav, again, which means the equivalent of, now you have 15 kav for the 3 different types. So 15 kav for 30 loaves is what? Half a kav per loaf. So it's the same thing. You have 1.5 kav for each of the chametz loaves, half a kav for each of the... So the ratio is obviously going to be the same because it's a different measurement, but it's the same measurement. You're calling it, it's the same amount. So you're calling it a kav. You're calling this, let's say this cup is an isaron, and it's going for the chametz. So whatever it was called in Yisrael, now it's called 1.5 cups.
Same volume.
1 Yisrael equals 1.5 cups. It's a liter in a gallon, but the point is that a liter is that you have to say 4 liters in a gallon.
Well,
It's like translations.
Right, so it's just a matter of translation. Right, so it's just a matter of translation. So back in the day, they used 4 liters of flour, and today we would call it 1 gallon of flour. That's the point. Says Gemara, but it's the same amount of flour. But it's all the same amount.
You know that a gallon is 4 liters or whatever.
No, it's not. It's more.
US.
Liters are more than
US gallons.
Let's deal with these measures.
Okay, says the Gemara. All I know, the bottom line is that in the United States, when I fill up my van, it costs me $45, and when I fill up my van here, it costs me $85. That's all I know. I don't care how many liters I'm putting in. I don't care how many things I'm putting in. I'm paying $85 for my same van that I pay $45 in America. Put in 45 times 1.3. Okay, I don't want to talk about it. Bottom line is, please find me a job in New York. Hatoda Haisaba Chameshan Yerushalmios. That was on camera, yes. Hatoda Haisaba Chameshan Yerushalmios. The Toda came with 5 son Yerushalmios, which we said was 6 midbarios, which is what we're dealing with. Minahani Mili. So Gemara wants to know, how do we know, based on the midbarios, again, we said, let's just go back to the biblical times, because that's what the Torah is talking about. You have 6 son midbarios, which is 2 ephahs, which means that each ephah is 3 sa. So Gemara just wants to know, going back in time, how do you know, what's the source that an ephah equals 3 sa? That's all it's asking right now. It says Gemara Rav Chisda, Amar Kra, ha'ephah v'abas tochen echad yiyeh. Well, we're going to learn from a bas. A bas is a liquid measure, and ephah is a dry measure. So how do we know that an ephah is 3 sa? Because we have a precedent that we know that a bas is 3 sa. And if an ephah is the same as a bas, then an ephah is 3 sa. How do we know that a bas is shlosha? Ma bas shlosha sa and af ephah shaloshan. So we have ephah and bas on the same bas. Like ubas gufa minal. How do we know that a bas is 3 sa? Because it says that a bas is meiser of chomer. And we know that chomer is 30 sa. So if a bas is 1/10 of 30 sa, it's 3 sa. So asking if that's the truth, and you're learning bas from there to say that bas is 1/10 of 30, which is 3, and now we have a pasuk that says that bas is like ephah. What do I need that for? I have a separate pasuk. Midachsiv. What does it say? Eilim midachsiv this. Ephah nami haksiv. There's a separate pasuk by ephah that says vasiris achomer ephah. That an ephah is also an asiris achomer. Ella, what's the problem? Chomer lo yadana kama. Hachanami lo yadana kama. We don't know how much a chomer is. A chomer we don't know is 30. Therefore, we still don't have a source. So it says in Ella mehacha. How do we know? V'chok hashemen habas hashemen u'maiser habas min hakor aseret sabatim chomer ki aseret sabatim chomer. There we have the source. We know that a bas, it says, is 1/10 of a kor. What's a kor? A kor is 30 sa. Therefore, a bas is 1/10 of a kor is 3 sa. We have another pasuk that compares. There's no pasuk by ephah that compares it to 1/10 of a kor. Therefore, we have the pasuk that tells us that a bas is 3 sa. Then we have a separate pasuk that compares a bas to an ephah, and therefore we know that an ephah is 3 sa as well. Just a technical discussion. It says in Gemara, Amar Shmuel. This is very interesting and a little bit difficult, but very interesting. Amar Shmuel. Ein mosifan ala midos yoter mishtus. Now again, we're calling it a 6 because we're looking at it after the fact. Everybody get that? If I have 5. If I have 6, if this is 6 sa, and now it's 5 sa, right? If I have $1 Canadian, and now it's 75 cents American, or the opposite, if I have $1 American, and now it's 75 cents Canadian, so now the American dollar is stronger. When it was 1-to-1, whichever one is less, so the other one is stronger. So this used to be 6 sa. If I went into the store and I said I want 6 sa, I would get this. Now when I go into the store, if I want this, I got to ask for 5 sa. Which means that each sa is 20% more than it used to be,
right.
Which is a 6th, again, after the fact. Because 5 to 6, you had to add, if you look at the last number, 6,
15%.
well, it's 20%, that's the point.
20%.
It's 20%.
Depends from which direction.
A 6, it depends which direction. If I have 5,
Oh, which direction? Yeah.
right? If I have 6, and now it's becoming 5,
Yes.
it means I had to reduce it by 20%.
In Shas, they always go from
The external, from the end. So that's why it calls it a 6. But the point is that if I want to get from 5 to 6, I really need to add 20%. 120, which is 1/5, which is 1. But when I look at it at the end, and I look at it, I went from 5 to 6, you say, how much did I add? I added, right, from the 6, I added 1/6. But really, I added 20%. So it's calling it 1/6, and that's what Ona is. And it's the same discussion by Ona. Right. Can't overcharge 1/6. Is it 1/6? Like if I'm charging, let's say the market price is $10. Does that mean, or let's say the market price is $12. Does that mean I can't charge $14? More than 14, or does it mean no? It means that I can't charge more than what would be 1/6 at the end of the day, which is less than 14, right?
20%.
Whatever it is. So the point is that it's calling it 1/6, but it's saying it's adding. So what's the pshat here? This is very interesting. Ein mosifin ala midos yoser mishtus. I can't add more than 1/6 to a measurement, which means that if I have measurements and if I'm calling this 6 sa now, I can't now call this anything less than 5 sa, which is a 20%, again, increase in the sa amount. Each sa now is worth 1.2 of what it originally was. I can't do more than a 6, and we'll have to see exactly why. Why is that? I can't change the measurement 20%. So now the size, again, is 1/6 larger than the old size. That's what we would look at it. I can't add to the coinage, to the weight of coins, more than a 6. And the last one, which we'll see, is, I can't overcharge you more than a 6. Says Gemara, my timer. It's interesting. What are we worried about? Says Gemara, we're worried about inflation. What's going to happen? Again, this thing used to be called 6 sa. Now this thing is going to be called 5 sa. So what's going to happen? The guy's going to come and he's going to say what? He's going to say, I want, how much is he going to say? He's going to say, I want a certain measurement. But he's going to see that our prices now, he's going to see in the marketplace, how much does he know? He knows that usually, last time he came, how much did last time he came with $20, what did he get? He got 6 sa. Now he's going to come to the marketplace and he's going to see what? He's going to see that $20 only buys you 5 sa. Now you know and I know that it's the same volume, that you're still getting this. But as far as he knows, he doesn't realize that you made the sas bigger. And therefore what? He thinks you're charging him 20% more than last time. What's going to happen? He's going to go ahead and now he's going to be bringing his produce, right? China buys from us, but we buy from China as well. So now what happens? Now they're going to raise all their prices 20%. Tariffs, they're going to raise it 20%. If you guys are charging us 20% extra for everything, we're going to raise 20%. Now we know we're not charging you anything extra. We're just calling it something different. But you're not going to know that. So says the Gemara, that's the problem over here. Says the Gemara, that can't be the problem. Why not? Because ihachi shtus namilo. If the problem is that he's going to start overcharging us, i.e. inflation, then why are we allowed to raise it up to a 1/6? Let's say I do even 5.5. Anyway, now he's going to think that we're overcharging him 10% and he's going to raise his prices 10%. Why should it be up to 20%, i.e. a 1/6? We shouldn't be able to we shouldn't be able to charge the measure. We shouldn't be able to change the measurements also. Clearly, the reason that we are allowed to change the measurements, which we're allowed to do up to a 6, clearly can't be related to the merchants, and we'll have to assume that the merchants will find out and they'll ask somebody. They're not just going to assume and then raise their prices. They're going to find out and realize, oh, you guys changed your measurements. So what's the reason we can't change our measurements more than a 6? Elamishum ona, because of ona. What's ona? Ona is price fraud. We know that if I overcharge you less than 1/6 of the going rate, that's not ona. You assume when you buy something that the person's going to make a little bit of money, and therefore the sale is valid. If I overcharge you 1/6 of the going rate, then the sale is valid, but I need to return the entire 6 to you that I overcharged you. And if I charge you more than 1/6 over the going rate, the sale is null and void, and I need to give back all your money. So what's the problem? We're saying you can't change the measurements more than 1/6. Again, 20%, but more than 1/6. Because if we do, what's going to happen? The outside merchant is going to come and he's going to sell you things. And what's going to happen? You're going to use your measuring thing. So what's he going to do? He's going to say, here, I'm selling you X amount of stuff. I want to sell you 6 sa worth of stuff, or I want to sell you 5 sa worth of stuff. So what's he going to do? He's going to tell me, please give me your container. And I'm going to give him my 5 sa container, and he's going to fill this up. Now, he's really giving me in his measurements 6 sa worth of stuff, right? Because this, when I say I want to buy 5 sa from you, right? Every time he came, I used to buy 6 sa from him because he wanted to fill this up. Now I know that if I say to him, I want to buy 5 sa from you, and I'll be able to save a 6th, if I buy 5 sa from him, he's still going to fill this up for me. Because in his mind, he's doing whatever I tell him, because he's using my measuring thing, he trusts me, and I'm not lying to him. I'm asking him to fill up 5. He doesn't realize that my 5 is really 6 for him. So he's ending up giving me the same amount, but now he's charging me 1/6 less. Because he thinks he's giving me 5 sa of his stuff, but he's really giving me 6 sa of his stuff, which is 5 sa of my stuff. Does that make sense? That's ona. Now ona is usually the seller overcharging the buyer. That's why it's not really called overcharging, it's called price fraud. In this case, it's going to end up, and it's not necessarily that I'm doing it on purpose, I'm going to end up frauding him. Because he's going to end up giving me 6 sa worth of stuff and only charging me for 5 sa, because I'm saying, give me 5 sa. I'm not lying. I'm giving him a 5 sa thing. It's just that I happen to call this 5 sa, and he happens to call this 6 sa, he's going to give me 6 sa of his stuff. My sa is 1.2 of his sa. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it says in Gemara, 1 second. So that's the reason you can't raise it more than 1/6. Says in Gemara, I don't understand. Because you don't want to be over ona. And if you raise it less than 1/6, then at the very least, okay, I'll be price frauding him, but I'll be price frauding him less than 1/6, then that's okay. Again, we're assuming that you're not doing it on purpose. We're assuming that you're just not making the connection. So I'm going to be price frauding him. So now he's giving me, so less than 1/6. If I make this 5.1 sa, then at the end of the day, he's giving me 6 sa. I'm paying for 5.1 sa, and therefore I'm price frauding him only less than 1/6. And therefore the sale will be valid. Says Gemara, that can't be because this is not price fraud. That's not what ona is. If you remember, we spoke that ona is only when you have a set amount and you know what you're buying and you overcharge him for what you're buying. Here, the actual item is in question. He thinks that he's giving you X amount, and I know that I'm getting X amount. There's no, ona is only when we know we're buying a Gemara and you overcharge me more than 1/6 for the going rate of the Gemara. Here, I'm not price frauding you over the going rate. It's that our calculations, our midos, our measurements are totally off. You're talking this, and I'm talking that. You're talking A, and I'm talking B. It's sort of a mekach.
Yeah.
But we're saying it's not a din of ona, so it can't be that the 6th is. And again, we're just trying to figure out what is this 6th connected to. What is this idea that you're allowed to go ahead and you're allowed to change the measurement to 6? So we're saying maybe it's connected to ona. It can't be connected to ona because it has nothing to do with ona. That's what the Gemara says. El mishumana ki yechidil lahave bitol mekach. Ha'amarava kol davar shebemida v'shebemishkal v'sheminin afilu pachos miknei ona chozer. This is a mekach. Even if it's less than a 6, it's a mekach because he thinks that he's giving me 5 sa worth of stuff, and he's really giving me 6 sa. That's a mekach. Even if it's less than a 6, it's going to be null and void. It's only ona when we're dealing with price fraud, when we're dealing with the price change. Here, he thinks he's selling you one thing, and he's really selling you something else, so if he's able to prove it, the whole thing is going to be void, even if it was only 5 pennies more than he originally thought. Right? Again, ona is dafka when you're dealing with a price. But you have a set item. Here you don't even have a set item. He thinks he's giving you one item and he's really giving you another item. Says the Gemara, so what's the pshat over here? We still haven't answered what's the reason that you can't raise the measurements more than a 6. Ela mishum tagra. Again, back to the merchants. Kihechi delo limtaye diana. What does this mean? They're not going to suffer a loss. It's not like before where we said we're afraid that they're going to raise the prices on us, China. No, the problem is that they're going to end up suffering a loss. Ona is only ona if I overcharge you the going rate. So ona is out of the question now. But obviously, if there's work involved in something, if I have to process something, so what does that mean, the going rate? If I have to schlep something from the village to the city, if I'm a merchant, I'm schlepping from the village to the city, there's no going rate, or there might be, but there's no going rate on how much I'm allowed to charge to bring the stuff. That's why ona doesn't apply a lot of times today, because there's a lot of labor involved. If we're selling something that everybody's selling for the same price and I'm overcharging by 25%, that's one thing. But if I'm the manufacturer, so for me, I might have a better product. I might have a worse product. I might have to schlep it all the way from China and have to bring it with me on a ship, and you might have made it, or the opposite. I might have had a... What?
You also have overhead.
You also have overhead, so there's no ona by that. But what's the problem now if I change it more than a 6? The Gemara assumes that a merchant makes 1/6 profit. The Gemara assumes that a merchant wants to make 1/6 profit. So therefore, if he's going to go to this village and he's going to buy it and then bring it to the city, he needs to make 1/6 profit. So what's going to happen? He's going to buy something. He's going to go through the whole thing. He's going to do the manufacturing. This is very interesting stuff. He's going to do the manufacturing. He's going to go through everything. He's going to bring it to the city, and he's going to sell it to you. If you change your measurements, so it's not a problem of ona. It might even be mekach toes, but if you change your measurements, what's going to happen? He's going to end up losing all of his profit because he went ahead and what? He factored in with his price and everything that he's going to make 1/6, and it's going to cover all of his expenses. Now when he ends up selling you something, but you're taking a different amount, he thinks he's selling you 5 sa, and you're really taking 6 sa, you're taking that 1/6 profit, and he's left with no profit. That's the reason you can't do more than a 6. Says Gemara, how could that be? If that's true, Dianahu delo limti, Rev chalo boy, Zavim v'zavin tigre ikri, you think he's just a merchant to be called a merchant? Okay, so now if you're taking away some of it, who cares? So you think that away. So less than 1/6 is okay? Less than 1/6, now you're taking away some of his profits. So now he's happy to only make 1/10? No, he wants to make 1/6. So you can't change the measurements at all according to this svara either, because he's not going to make his 1/6. If you change it even a little bit, he's going to make, besides the fact that it's a mekach tos, the Gemara's not even going there, because it already answered that, but the Gemara is saying that he's going to end up making 1/10 or 1/20 or 1/30. It's not worth his time. He didn't go into business to not make any money. So what's the bottom line? What's the reason that you can change measurements more than 1/6? Says the Gemara to Gzeres HaKasov. Ela Marav Chisda Shmuel Kra Ashkach V'Darash Hashekel esrim geira, esrim shkalim, chamisha ve'esrim shkalim, asar ve'chamisha shekel hamana yelachem. Again, it's a little bit of a confusing Gemara, but the Gemara says that there's something that used to be called a mana. There's different manas. There was a mana, and then there was a sanctuary mana. There was a mana, and then there was a mana that was used at the times of the temple. So what's this mana? This mana is talking about the sanctuary mana. So this sanctuary mana was how much? How much was the sanctuary mana worth? It was worth esrim shkalim and chamish of esrim shkalim, 20 plus 25 plus 10 plus 5. 20 plus 25 is 45, plus 10 is 55, plus 5 is 60. So this mana, this sanctuary mana, was worth 60 shkalim, which is the equivalent of 240 dinar. Okay, says the Gemara, mana masan ve'arba'in havu. So again, the Gemara is saying that this sanctuary mana was worth 60 shkalim, as the pasuk suggests, and 60 shkalim, we know each shekel is worth 4 dinars, so it's 240 dinar. The Gemara asks a question on it. Says, is it possible that a sanctuary mana was worth 240 dinar? What do we know? We know from elsewhere that a mana is only worth 100 dinar, 25 shkalim. So how can you tell me that a mana is worth 60 shkalim or 240 dinarim, if we know from elsewhere that a mana is only worth 25 shkalim or 100 dinarim? Says Gemara, Shmamina Tzlas. We learned 3 things. Shmamina mana shel kodesh kafel haya. First of all, we learned that the sanctuary mana in this verse is double the amount of a regular mana in size. It's double the amount. It's not worth more. They haven't changed the prices. It's double the amount. Therefore, if a regular mana was 100 dinar equals 25 shekel, then this one, which is double the size, is 200 dinar, which is 50 shekel. What happened to the other 40? Well, we're going to see in a second, they also raised the price. They also raised the thing. But right now, bottom line is, a sanctuary mana was worth double the amount of a regular mana, because it was 200, it was double the size, let's say. It was 50, the weight, let's say, was 50 shkalim, and the regular thing was 25 shkalim. So that's one thing. The sanctuary mana was double the size of a regular mana. That's the first thing we learned. Kafel haya. Ushmamina mosifin alamidos ve'mosifin yosem ishtus. And we also learned what we were looking for. What happened? Let's go now back over here. So they went and they had 100 dinar. Or they had, let's just say, 100 dinar. So the money was worth 100 dinar, and again, they doubled the weight. It was 200 dinar, but it was still, again, it was still 100 dinar. So what happened? So now they double the weight. Now it's worth 200 dinar. Now you have a fat. I want to say a fat. You have a money that's worth 200 dinar. But now you see that the Gemara is assuming that the going rate for that 200 dinar thing was 240. How did it get to 240? Because what did they do? They changed the measurement of the dinar. They started calling this mana a mana, but they changed the measurement. How do you get from 200 to 240? You add a fifth, 20%.
Shekel chadash.
Shekel chadash, whatever it is, equivalent of shekel chadash. So they basically had a mana. Again, they have basically 3 manas. They had the original mana, which was 100 dinar. Then they had this sanctuary mana, which was kafel, which was 200 dinar. And then at a certain point, they changed the measurements, and what they started calling a mana was no longer 200 dinar, it was 240 dinar. It was the same coin. They just changed it, and they started calling it 240 dinar. Here, they went the opposite, right? In our Mishnah, they went from 6 to 5. Here they went the opposite. They went 200, 240. They lowered it by 6.
240 the original dinar.
240 of the original dinar was now 200.
200 of the new one.
Right. Interesting. So there was a 6. Again, you can do the math, but the point is that this is a source that it was a 6. Ushmamina shtusa milvad. And this is what the rabbi was saying, Rabbi Berman was saying, that it's milvad. Anytime you raise a 6th, and we're not going to get into it now, but anytime you do a 6th, it's externally. It means it's after the fact. So like Oda, again, if you're not allowed to charge more than a 6 extra, if the going rate is $12, it's not 14. The maximum is not 14, because that would be a 6th of the original. It's that after you paid whatever you paid, it can't be more than a 6, or it can't be more than 2. You can't have paid more than 2. So what would that be? Do the math. If you have, you're good at math? So if you have 12, I'm just blanking out. If you have 12 here, so we're saying that it's not that, so you would say that you can't charge more than a 6. So if it goes based on what you have in front of you, it means you can't charge more than $2 extra. You can't charge more than 14. But that wouldn't be, because if you look at 14, 1/6 of 14 is...
No, you did 1/6 of 12.
You start with 10.
Yeah.
You need 1/6 of 12 is 2.
So 20% of 10 is
2.
Is 2. 2 and 10 is 12. And 1/6 of 12 It's 2.
So therefore what? So therefore if you have 10, you can't charge more than 12. That's the point.
Right.
If you have 10, you can't charge more than 12, which is 20% more.
Right.
Again, you have to look at it after the fact. If you had 10, you would think that you can't charge more than what? Than 1/6. If you do 1/6, you would think you can't charge more than then you can't charge more than like $11.50. But we don't go based on what you have now. We go that at the final price can't be more than 1/6. And therefore, if you have a $10 item that the going rate is $10, you can't charge more than 12. 12 is not, no, 12 is 1/6 more. Because you're charging 1/6 more of the final price. The final price is 1/6 more than the original. Right? That's how you do the math. Okay. But the point is that we found our source and that you can't add more than 1/6 to the measurements. Therefore, that's what they did, the maximum that they did. They took a 6 saw, which used to be called 6 saw, and they made the measurement stronger, and now this same thing is called 5 saw. That's all that they could have done. They could have done that this is 5.5 saw now. They could have done anything less than 5. Anything less than 5. If they would have called this 4 saw, that would have been usher. Because that would have been making the saw that's today a 40%. Like what they did with the Canadian dollar would be usher. Because it was more than a 20% jump. It was like a 30% jump. That's a 33%.
On the supposition that profit has to be...
No, again, it's based on the pasuk. We said it's not to do with the profit, because if it was based on the profit, you couldn't change it at all. If it was based on the merchant, you couldn't change it at all. If it was based on inflation, you couldn't change it at all. If it was based on oil, you couldn't change it at all. The point is that it's based on the pasuk that clearly says over here they were able to extend 200 to 240, 240 to 200, and therefore, Lamaisa, it's exeris hakasiv, you can't do more than a 6. Says Gemara, Marvina, Masisa Nami Deka, Diktani, Toda Haisabah, Hameshan Yushamish, Shehin Sheish Midbar. It's like we said, Shmamina, you went from 6 to 5. Okay, let's get moving. We have 10 more minutes. Mikulam Hayanotel. 15 minutes. Mitkulam hayanotel echad me'asara truma. Now we know again, techazer, this is great stuff. You have 4 types of bread. Each one has 10 loaves. We said there's one chametz loaf, and there's one chametz thing of 10 loaves, and then 3 types of non-chametz bread with 10 loaves each, so you have 30 and 10. 40 total. Mikulam hayanotel echad me'asara truma. So the Mishnah is telling us that what did you do? You made 10 loaves, 10 loaves, 10 loaves, 10 loaves, and as we spoke about yesterday, what did you do? You took 1 loaf off of each kind. So you ended up having for yourself 36 loaves, 9 of each kind, and the Kohen got a variety, 1 of each kind. Very simple, right? Again, you would make the dough, you'd cut it up into 10 pieces, you'd cook them, and then you'd bake them, whatever, fry them, and then you take the 1 out of every 10, and you'd give it to the Kohen, and you'd eat the other 9. Says in Gemara, how do you know that? Shenemar v'ikrivi menu echad mikol korban truma l'Hashem echad shelo yitol pros. Like we said, you have to take 1 whole loaf out of the 10. You can't just take a piece. We said yesterday that if you don't take off, right? We said there's a possibility maybe to take out of the dough. But here we're talking about taking 1 whole loaf. Mikol korban. What does that teach us? Sheyu kol korban shavos. Interesting. We know you have to have 40. So you might think what? You might think that, what can I do? I can get away with having not 10, 10, 10, and 10. If I like matzah more than I like lafas, I can make 15 matzahs, I can make 15 of the regular wafers, and I can make only 5 of the lafas. No, no, no. It's got to be 10 lafas, 10 matzahs, 10 of the ones with the scalded flour, and 10 of the regular chalos that are chametz. That's the next thing we learn. And also, shelo yitol mi korban al chavero. Because we also learn you can't take 1 for the next. It means you have 4 different types. I have to give 4, I have to give, again, 1 of each to the Kohen, which is a total of 4 out of the 40 loaves. I can say, you know what, I really like lafas, so I'm going to do 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, but I really like lafas, I don't want to give 1 of the lafas to the Kohen. I don't really like matzah much, I'll give him 2 matzahs, 1 of this, and 1 of the chalas. Or I'll give him, I don't really like wafers, I don't really like matzah, I'll give him 4 matzahs, and it'll cover my other 30 breads. Can't do that. He's got to get 1 of each. The Kohen deserves a variety too. Maybe he doesn't like matzah either. So the Kohen gets a variety of each. That's based on the pasuk. And finally, lekohen hazarekes dama shlamim lo yeh v'hashar nechal lebalim. Again, the Kohen gets those 4, 1 of each, and the shar goes to you. You get to bring 36. Not a bad deal, Toda. You get 36 breads at home. Tana Rabbanan v'kriv mimenu mina mechubar. It also learns, again, we're darshing the pasuk mina mechubar. What that means is that when you're going in and you're taking off the truma, which we're calling 1/10, which is really meiser in this case, and the Gemara is going to establish how do we know truma here means meiser. All the pasuk says is take off truma. Truma can mean a 10th. Truma can mean a tiny bit. So we'll see in a second. Says the Gemara, when you're doing this, what you have to basically do is you put each individual min, which again is 10 loaves each, you put that into a kli. So I take this dough of all the challah, whatever, all of the chametz, I cut it up into 10, I leave it in 1 kli, then I take 1 off. It has to be, as it says, it needs to be mechubar. And then I have the 10 loaves of the chametz stuff in 1 kli, and I take off 1. But it needs to be mechubar, they all need to be together in their own kli. That's one thing. Shelo yitol pros Echad shelo yitol pros. You have to take a whole piece. Mikol korban sheyu kol hakorban hashavos. Like we said, shelo yitol min hakorban al chavero. Truma l'Hashem. So now the Gemara says, Truma l'Hashem eni yodea mikamahi. We need to work backwards. How did you get to the fact that you need to take one loaf? How did you get to the fact, first of all, that you need 40 loaves? What does it say that you need 40 loaves? All we know in the Torah is that you have 4 types of bread. So if you can establish that a Truma l'Hashem is 1/10, if you can establish what the Gemara is about to do now, that Truma l'Hashem is 1/10, then you can work backwards. If I know that one loaf is 1/10 of the original, then I know that originally there were 10 loaves in each kind. But if I tell me that Truma is 1/50th of the original, that means that there were 50 of each kind. So we're taking it for granted that we only know 40, the Gemara is saying, from the fact that we know that you took off one of each of the 4 kinds. So if I know that I took off 1/10, is like a math problem for my 5th grade girl. If I took off 1/10, then how many of the original? If I took off 1, and that was 1/10 of the original, how many originals were there? There were 10 originals. Well, you have to take off 1/10 of each, therefore you have 40 originals, 10 of each. That's the Gemara. The Gemara says, how do you know that? How do you know that when it says you have to take off Truma l'Hashem, it means 1/10 of the originals, which by definition will mean that originally there were 10 of each, which by definition will mean that there were 40 total. How do you know that? Says the Gemara, Hareini Dan. Nemar kan Truma v'nemar b'Trumas Meiser Truma. We know that the Levi gets Meiser, Kohen gets Truma, a little bit amount, which seems like not fair. The Levi gets more than the Kohen. You can give a tiny amount, 1/50th, 1/40th, 1/50th, 1/60th to the Kohen. The Levi gets 1/10th, but then the Levi has to give a Meiser of his, Trumas Meiser, to the Kohen. So the Kohen ends up doing okay. But it says Truma over here, and it says by Trumas Meiser Truma. Mala halanachon me'asar, afkan achon me'asar. So just like by Trumas Meiser, it means the Levi gives 1/10. So to over here, we have to give 1/10, which means again that it's 1 out of 10, which means that there are 10 of each, which means that there's 40 total. Okay, but why are you comparing it to Trumas Meiser? Maybe you can compare it to Bikurim. By Bikurim, we know that by the first fruit, you just have to bring a small amount. There's no set amount. There's no set amount. It just has to be some of the new fruits. Therefore, when it says Truma l'Hashem, you just have to give whatever you want. And then we can't get to the 40 number, because unless we know how much the Truma l'Hashem is, we can't get to the original number. Says the Gemara, it makes more sense to compare Toda to Meiser, to Trumas Meiser, than to compare it to Bikurim. Nira lemidome. Done in Truma she'en acharat Truma mi Truma she'en acharat Truma. Toda has no Truma afterwards. You bring the Toda, you're done. You bring the Trumas Meiser, the Levi, you're done. V'al yochiach Bikurim she'esh acharein Truma. After you bring the Bikurim, there's a lot more work to do. That's only the first fruits, the stuff that's ripe. The stuff that hasn't been ripe yet, you still got to take Truma off of and Meiser off of. So since that's only the beginning of the process, we're not going to compare something that's the end of the process to something that's the beginning of the process. Okay, maybe the opposite. Done in Truma nechalas b'makom kadosh, mi Truma nechalas b'makom kadosh. Maybe we should compare it to Bikurim, because Bikurim is like Toda in the sense that it needs to be eaten in Yerushalayim. Trumas Meiser can be eaten anywhere. So maybe we shouldn't compare it. So which one are you going to compare it to? Are you going to compare it to Trumas Meiser and then Shalom Al Yisrael? We're good, we got our 40. Or are you going to compare it to Bikurim and then we're stuck and we have no idea how many loaves you need? Obviously, what are we going to do? We're going to compare it to Trumas Meiser. But how do we know that? Talmud Lomar mimenu Truma l'Hashem, uchtiv b'Trumas Meiser mimenu Truma l'Gzerat Shava. It says the word Truma, Truma, Truma by all 3 of them, but it doesn't say the word mimenu. It says the word mimenu only by Trumas Meiser and Toda. It doesn't say the word mimenu by Bikurim, and therefore we're going to make Gzerat Shava. So it's ending up that even though we have all these beautiful svaras, at the end of the day we're making the Gzerat Shava of the psukim of Truma of mimenu to know that, again, it's like Trumas Meiser, it's 1/10, and therefore you have 40 breads total. Fine. You've established that Truma l'Hashem is 1/10, therefore it's 10 loaves of each of the 4 types, therefore you have 40. The problem is, mikama hichala. Now, you told me, says the Gemara, today, in the Mishnah, that using biblical terms, each loaf of, we're going to talk about the chametz part for now. Again, we said how much flour does each loaf of chametz get? We said again, 10 isaron goes to the chametz, and 10 isaron goes to the 30 ones of matzah. So how much does each loaf of chametz get? 1 isaron of flour. So the Gemara says, how do you know? It's very nice that you told me this, but how do you know? The Gemara always wants another source. How do you know that each loaf of chametz bread by the Toda gets 1 isaron? And again, we'll have to talk about afterwards how you know that each thing by matzah gets 1/3 of an isaron. But how do you know that each thing of chametz gets 1 isaron? Hareini dan. Nemer kan lechem and nemer lahadil mishtei lechem lechem. It says over here by the Toda lechem, and it says by the shtei lechem that come on Shavuos, that it has to be lechem. Malahal and isaron lechala, afkanison lechala. How much isaron do you use by the shtei lechem? 2 isaron. 1 isaron for each challah. So just like by the shtei alechem, you're using 1 isaron of flour for each challah, which happens to not be challah, it happens to be, well, it is challah. The shtei alechem is challah, right? The lechem apanim is matzah. So just like the shtei alechem each are a challah, and they're 1 isaron each, so too here the toda, which is also a challah, which is, again, we're talking about the 10 that are actual chametz. These two are also going to be isaron. So you're making a limud from shtei alechem. Says Gemara, malahalan isaron l'challah, afkan isaron l'challah. Okoch l'derech zu. Maybe we should learn from where? From lechem apanim. Nemar kan lechem, nemar belechem apanim lechem. Malahalan shnei asonos, afkan shnei asonos. What was it per loaf by the lechem apanim? By the lechem apanim, you actually use 2 isaron per loaf. By the lechem apanim, you use 2 isaron per loaf. Shnei esronos per loaf, so to be 2 esronos per loaf, and you should need 20 esronos. How do you know that it's only 10 esronos, 1 per loaf? Says Gemara, nira lemidoma. Which one is it more like? Is toda more like the shtei alechem, or is toda more like the lechem apanim? Obviously, what's the answer going to be? It's more like the shtei alechem. How is it more like the shtei alechem? Done in mincha ba chametz imazevach, mincha ba chametz imazevach. Because first of all, there's 2 things. First of all, the toda comes chametz. The toda, again, we're talking about the 10 loaves of chametz. The shtei alechem is also chametz. And the second thing is that the toda comes with an animal, the korban toda, and the shtei alechem comes with an animal, the kifsei atzeres. As opposed to what? Vayuchiach lechem apanim, which is, first of all, we said the lechem apanim are matzahs, even though we don't think so, they're lafas. The lechem apanim, which is brought, the 12 lechem apanim, sheino ba chametz, those are matzahs, imazevach, and they don't come with zavach, they just come by themselves. So there's 2 things that are more similar to shtei alechem, and therefore, just like shtei alechem has 1 isaron per loaf, so too, you should have 1 isaron per loaf of this, of the toda. No, maybe it is comparable to lechem apanim. Why? Done in mincha ba me'eretz mechutz la'aretz min hachadash min ha'yashan, mincha ba me'eretz mechutz la'aretz min hachadash min ha'yashan. Vayochichu shtei alechem shein ba'otzel min hachadash min ha'aretz. Well, no, there's a similarity, because lechem apanim, despite the fact that it's brought into the Kodesh, lechem apanim can actually be brought from Chadash or Yashan. It could even be brought from flour outside of Eretz Yisrael. So can the Toda. But the Shtei HaLechem, which is the new, right, it has to be Chadash, it has to be the new grain, it has to be brought dafka from grain in Eretz Yisrael. So there's a certain similarity between Toda and Shtei HaLechem, between Toda and Lechem apanim, that's not between Toda and Shtei HaLechem. And maybe you should really need 2 isaron per loaf. Says Gemara, Talmud Lomar, it says by the Shtei HaLechem, mimoshvasechem taviu lechem tinufa shtayim. By the Shtei HaLechem, it says the word taviu. She'ein tam alomer. Again, you're bringing 2 for the 2 loaves, which is 1 isaron per loaf. She'ein tam alomer taviu. It didn't have to say the word taviu. That's superfluous. Why? Because it just told you v'hikraftem. So the word taviu, what does it mean taviu? Ma tam alomer taviu. The Gemara says the extra word shekol masha tamevi makom acher harehu kazeh. Mala nisaron l'chala afkan nisaron l'chala. So the Gemara says it really, again, it's a limud in the pasuk. The pasuk by shtei alechem, you're right. You can make a comparison between toda and shtei alechem, but you can also make a comparison between toda and lechem apanim. Why do you compare it to shtei alechem? And therefore, just like the shtei alechem is 1 isaron per lechem, so too over here it's 1 isaron per lechem, because there's an extra word taviu by shtei alechem, which we say teaches me over here that it's going to be 1 isaron, similar, the toda is going to be similar to the shtei alechem. Says the Gemara, very nice, but the Gemara never lets up. Says the Gemara, why are you looking at it that over there, right, over there you're saying what? You're comparing it to the shtei alechem. The shtei alechem had what? 2 isronos for 2 lechem. But why are you assuming that therefore it's 1 isaron per lechem? It happens to be there, 1 isaron per lechem. Maybe over here it should be what? Maybe it should be 2 isronos for all 10 of the chametz lechems. Says the Gemara, Tamalomar tihiyena. Interesting diuk. It says over there tihiyena, there's an extra yud. Could have said tihiyena with 1 yud. The extra yud teaches me that each of these 10 chametz loaves, I have a total of 10 isaron, therefore 1 isaron per loaf. So again, it comes out that just like the shtei alechem, which are 2 isaron for 2 loaves, here we have 10 isaron for 10 loaves. Lamanu asar lechametz asar lamatzmanai. So now you've established beautifully. It's beautiful. You've established that we need 40. You have 4 categories, 10 of each, which is learned from Trumas Meiser. You've established that you need 10 isaron of flour for the chametz ones, similar to the shtei alechem. But how do you know now that you need 10 isarons for the other 30, which are the non-chametz ones? Says Gemara, Tamalomar achalos lechem chametz, because it makes a diuk in the pasuk. It makes a comparison, a hekesh, between the lechem ones, between the chametz ones and the matzah ones. Neged chametz have matzah. Whatever you brought for the chametz, you bring for the matzah. And just like you brought 10 isaron for the chametz ones, you bring 10 isaron for the matzah. Obviously, each matzah then is going to have, as we said, 30 matzah splitting up the same amount. As opposed to 10, it's going to be 1/3 of an isaron. Nimsu esrim esronos lachmei toda. Therefore, it comes out again that you have 20 isronos for the toda. Like we said, asara lechametz, asara lematzah. Yachol asar shematzah lo yikulan el mi minachad. Talmud lomar imal toda yikrevenu v'yikriv al zevach hatoda. Chalos matzah belus b'shem v'kika matzah meshuchim b'shem and solas mukeres. Now you might think maybe I take those 10 isronot and I only make one of the 3. Says the Gemara, it's ridiculous. The Torah says you need to make 3 different types, and we have to assume that you're splitting it up equally. So you split up the 10 isaron equally between the 3, between the 30, which is a third. Like we said, if you have 10 isaronos and 3 different types of bread, it's 3 1/3 isaron for each bread. 3 1/3 divided by 10 is 1/3 per loaf. Again, you have 40 total, so you give 4, 1 of each, and therefore you're left with 36 for yourself, 9 of each type, and 1 of each type goes to the Kohen. Amar Mar, almost done. Vikriv mimenu mina mechubar. We learn from the word mimenu that over here by the Toda, for each one of the 4 categories, the entire category needs to be in its own kli. So all of the chametz is in one kli. You cut it up into 10 pieces, and you bake it. You take 1 out of the 10. It has to be in its own kli. The word mimenu means it needs to be in its own kli. Says the Gemara, well, it says mimenu somewhere else by chatas. Elameata d'chsiv es kol chel bo yarim mimenu. You have to take all of the chelev. Mimenu hasam mai mechubarik, or what is there about having things together? By achatas, kid Rav Chisam Rabimi, Dam Rav Chisam Rabimi, shelo yinatach basar kodem shitol imor. And the basar and the imurim need to be together, and you can't start cutting up the basar until you take the imur, and that's the together over there. Over here, it's a different together. Although don't need to be together over there, it says that the basar and the imurim, which are eventually going to be burnt, the imurim can't be, the basar can't be cut up and taken until you finish going ahead and burning the imurim. Amar Mar, Nemar kan chuma v'nemar b'chumas ma'aser chuma. So the Gemara said, we learn again, just like by Chumas Meiser, Chuma means 1/10, therefore it's 1/10. If you're taking off 1 and that's 1/10, that means it's 10 loaves left. Says the Gemara, V'neilaf mi Chumas Midyan. Why don't we make a comparison to Chumas Midyan? How is Chumas Midyan? By Chumas Midyan, when they captured Midyan, we know that Elazar, the Kohen Gadol, got 1/500th of the spoil, and it called it Chuma. So maybe over here, it's a crazy suggestion, but maybe over here when it says you have to give a Chuma Lashem, you have to give 1/500th to the Kohen. Which means what? How many loaves do you need of each? 500. Maybe you need 2,000 loaves every time you bring a toda. That'd be a lot of bread. 2,000 loaves every time you bring a toda. And you learn from Midyan. How do you know that? Because Midyan tells me you bring 1/500th, and it's telling me you have to bring a truma to the Kohen, which is 1/500th. Therefore, by definition, you have 500 breads of each. Therefore, you have 2,000 breads, and you give 1 out of 500 of each. Says the Gemara, done in Chuma Neregas Adoros, mi Chumas Neregas Adoros. We learn from Chumas Meiser, because that's forever. Levi will always have to give Chumas Meiser. Toda will always come, as long as you have a base of Mikdash. We have this a lot of times, that Chumas Midyan was only a one-time thing, therefore we don't learn anything from it. V'neilaf mi Chumas Chala. Now the opposite extreme. Chumas Chala, not opposite extreme. There's a machlokes. Again, there's a whole discussion, biblical, rabbinical, but let's just say to simplify it, there's a machlokes how much Chuma, how much Chala you have to take off. Either 1/20th or 1/48th. So maybe we should learn from Chala and say that if you're giving 1/24th or 1/48th to the Kohen, we only need 24 of each category for a total of 24 times 4, 96. Or you need 48 of each, or you need 48 of each. 48 times 4 is 160, 192. So how do you know that it's not, you shouldn't compare it to Chala? Tani de Berishmal, done in Davar Shenemar Bo Mimenu Truma Hashem, Mi Davar Shenemar Bo Mimenu Truma Hashem, Lafuke Trumas Chala, Delon Emar Bo Mimenu Truma Hashem. Yes, it says Truma by Toda and by Chumas Meiser and by Chala, but it only says the word Mimenu by Chumas Meiser and by Toda. It doesn't say the word Mimenu by Chala, and therefore you don't learn from Chala. Finally, by Rava, Chumas lach me Toda chayavan aleh misa v'chomesh, oein chayavan aleh misa v'chomesh. Came into itgilis Chumas Meiser ke Chumas Meiser dami, o dilma bo v'chamishaso mi'ed rachmana. That means we know, you're comparing it now to Chumas Meiser. The question is, are you comparing it to Chumas Meiser all the way? We know that if a person who's not supposed to eat it, let's say a non-Kohen eats the Chumas Meiser that a Levi gives to a Kohen, if he eats it on purpose, he's chayav misa b'dei shemayim. And if he eats it by accident, he's chayav to repay the Kohen what he ate, and then to add a 1/5 the penalty. Again, 1/5, doing the math, will not be 1/5 if he ate 10, he has to give 2, it'll be 1/5 of whatever the final amount is. But does that apply over here as well? If I go ahead and I eat the Toda, right? If I go ahead and I eat the truma of the Toda, it means that there's supposed to be 1 loaf of each that goes to the Kohen. Let's say I eat that loaf. If I eat one of those 4 loaves, or a piece of one of those 4 loaves, is it similar, since we learned the whole thing from Chumas Meiser, is it similar to Chumas Meiser that if I eat it, I'm going to have misa b'dei shamayim? If I eat it on purpose, or I eat it by accident, I'm going to have to pay him a loaf plus a 5th? Or not? So the Gemara says teku, and it also says teku to the question midames o ena midames. We know that by Chumas Meiser, when Chumas Meiser goes ahead and mixes in, it causes the whole mixture to be prohibited, even on a larger than usual scale of bittul. We're going to say the same thing applies to Toda as well. That if one of the truma of the Todas, one of the loaf falls into other loaves, is it going to be batel or not? With the regular laws of batel, says the Gemara teku tishbi taret kushar zabayos, and we'll have to wait for Mashiach. Okay, we'll pick up here tomorrow.